Hi, it's Jeff here. Before we start our latest Six Nations pod, just a quick word to remind you of the Harpin Guinness Pint Predictor League. If you think you can predict the scores for this year's championship better than our panelists, then why not prove it first by downloading the free Fanzo app, then joining our league. Just enter the code Harpin, that's Harpin. In our last pod, we talked to Brian Moylett about his book, How to Become a Pro Rugby Player. And there's a signed copy to be won for the person with the best score in a single Six Nations round. The leader so far is Jack Fogarty with 58 points, and you'll have 3 more chances to beat that. And of course, you can also win a free pint from every match just by getting close enough to the right result. So be sure to take part. Right, on with the preview show. Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show. Joining me to look ahead to Leinster's return to URC action this coming Saturday is someone earning their 33rd cap. Welcome to Mr. Conor Cronin.
Great to be back. Nice to be back at an early time of the day.
Indeed. And before we talk about Saturday, Conor, we recently learned the sad news of the retirement of Jack McGrath. He certainly had a career to be proud of, that's for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it was 150 or so Leinster appearances, 56 Irish caps, 3 Lions caps, and then his progression into Ulster as well, where unfortunately injury just took over for him and didn't give him the run of games that he needed to get the most out of his career. You don't normally expect to see front row forwards at 31, 32, 33 retiring, but
yeah, that's when they're reaching their prime, really, mostly.
Yeah, and he's only 33. And having to give it up. My understanding is he had a double hip replacement, which is pretty big operation when it's a single, and having to have both done and then just not being able to get back to his peak. It was sad to see Ulster in a position where they had to let him go at the end of last year, and I know he was very enthusiastic about getting back to playing and finding a new club and finding somewhere else to go. So it's a real shame that it hasn't worked out for him, but fingers crossed for whatever the next phase of his career is, that everything goes well for him. He certainly gave us lots to shout about over the years and can be very proud of an incredibly good career.
Absolutely, definitely. Leinster usually they honor them at halftime in big matches, and I hope that when they do that, he definitely gets a big cheer, and we definitely wish him all the best. Okay, so now it's time to start harping on this week's feature match, which, as you can see there, is Leinster v Dragons. It's in round 14 of the 22-23 BKT United Rugby Championship, and it kicks off at the RDS Arena at 7:35 p.m. on Saturday, February the 18th. The match is being broadcast on RTE2 and Viaplay 1, also known as Premier Sports, and also URC.tv. Leinster named their starting lineup on Friday lunchtime, so let's have a look, starting with the back line. You've got Jimmy O'Brien at full-back, Dave Carney and Jordan Larmour, the wings. The centres are Jamie Osborne and Liam Turner, and the halfbacks are Luke McGrath and Harry Byrne.
I wouldn't worry. Henry is frequently abbreviated to Harry with the same number of letters. That's a great back line. It's great to see a couple of lads coming back in from the Irish squad and putting their hands up, and to show what they can do in advance of the Italy game the following week. But also, it's great to have these players coming in and just providing the talent and the skill that they have, added to by the experience they've been having in the Irish camp over the last couple of weeks. I'm expecting to see some really nice backline tries this weekend, and yeah, I just think there's too much talent there for anything else.
Yeah, we usually say how we want there to be no Leinster games when there's Six Nations or Irish games on the same weekend. The only one negative of that is that we really want Harry Byrne to get games into his legs consecutively, week in, week out. This is another chance for him to start, and it's a shame it's this part of the season when it's stop, start, but still we'll take it. It's another good chance for him to show it's at home appearance, and he's got a good, like you say, a good back line around him. Jordan Larmour also has been tearing it up this season. we've seen what the Irish team have done, why it's not quite enough to make into the team, but he'll make another statement here. And great to see Jamie Osborne back as well, and alongside Liam Turner, that's a really quality center pairing to put in there. When you consider all the other names we have available, the Dragons might have thought they might get a break on this weekend coming to the RDS, but it's definitely a good backline. All right, okay, we'll move on to the forwards now. The front row is Michael Milne, John McKee, and Michael Alatoa. Second row, Ross Maloney and Brian Deeney. And then the back row, Rhys Ruddock, the captain, Scott Penny, and Max Deegan.
That's a strong back row, if nothing else. Really, really good back row of fellas who all could be in contention for any match day weekend. It just happens that they're getting a chance to shine on one where there's other fellas missing. But you've talked about it before, the back row roulette, or the back row one-armed bandit, see what spins round. And it's a well-balanced back row and a strong back row. Good to see Brian Deeney getting another chance. He really proved himself while McCarthy was injured a few weeks back, and showed why he's earning his place in the squad. And the experience of someone like Alatoa in the front row, we always want to have some big names still there, some fellows who've proven that they're consistent and proven their ability no matter what the opposition. And I think Alatoa is definitely one of those. He's becoming very, very dependable for us, and really puts in a shift every single game. And then you add in Ross Maloney, who with another Ireland coach, or another set of Ireland coaches over the last 5 years, might have had a few caps to his name by now. I want to see him putting in a big performance this weekend. Show the Irish camp. You might really favour Joe McCarthy right now, but I'm still there just in case. And with Ty Byrne going out for an injury, maybe that's an opportunity for him.
Absolutely, and we always say it, but I'm going to keep saying it until it stops happening. I mean, when you see the name Scott Penny and Max Deegan in a Leinster team in the URC, if you fancy sticking a few quid on anything for a try, or for a first try, or any kind of try, they have a way of uncanny knack of getting their names on the score sheet. All right,
they make it happen no matter what, and they'll be back sitting there looking, going, "Damn it, they're on the team sheet as well. That's going to take my opportunities just away just a little bit."
Absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to the bench now. And at 16, we've got Lee Barron. The other front rowers are Jack Boyle and Thomas Clarkson. Then we've got Jason Jenkins and Will Connors rounding out the forwards. And then the backs are Nick McCarthy, Charlie Tector, and Rob Russell.
Yeah, I think the name a lot of us are delighted to see is Jason Jenkins. Good to see him coming back from a little injury he had, and getting some game time this weekend, because I think what he brings to our physicality, what he brings to our scrum, there's a lot to be said for it. I'm looking forward to seeing him coming on, a little bit riled up and ready to go and smash a few fellas. And the same with Will Connors, coming on and hunting ankles as he does so well. Good experience there as well with Nick McCarthy to come in at scrum half when Luke McGrath goes off. To keep a steady level on the halfbacks. He'll be able to control the game well, where Tector hasn't got the URC experience to the same extent. And I know he's got experience, and he's a great player. Just nice to have the steadiness that McCarthy can offer for that remaining, what we assume will be sort of 20-25 minutes at the end of the game.
Absolutely. We've another new Leinster cap. I think Jack Boyle is due to come off the bench. He's another one from the Six Nations Grand Slam from last season team. So it's great, great to see just how much depth we're getting in our squad. There's just more players coming through the ranks. It's great to see.
Yeah, and it's really important to have that depth, because we talked about it last week on the wrap show for the Ireland-France game, the importance of fellas stepping up and fellas stepping into roles and depth being created in positions. And loose head is somewhere that we could really do with that now, presuming that, Cian Healy's not going to go forever. It's good to see someone who understands winning as a Six Nations Grand Slam player will to come through and step up into that role.
Absolutely. Okay, so now it's time to look at our opposition, which is, of course, the Dragons. As ever, my graphics department put the names up on the screen, or if you're listening on the podcast, they can be found in the program notes. How do you think their lineup's looking?
I think they're the least affected by the Wales call-ups. But looking at that back row, there's a lot there. There's some really big names in that back row, and I think that's the place where the battle will be won or lost, is the quality of tackling from our back row versus theirs, the quality of runs from our back row versus theirs. I think they've got a couple of good names on the bench as well. I mean, the one that stands out will of course be JJ Hanrahan. It's good to see him still getting game time. Interesting that he's only on the bench this week, but a player we should be concerned about when he does come on, because he's played against Leinster enough times. He understands us a little bit better, perhaps, I think, than a lot of those Dragons players would. I think they have a good squad. The question is, do they have enough in that squad to beat Leinster on the day?
Yeah, I mean, there's, as we all know, there's so much uncertainty going on in Welsh rugby at the moment. But the one thing you can always be certain of is they're going to put out a decent back row. Any of their regions, they'll put a decent back row against you, as in Basham and Moriarty and the likes of them. Like they are very strong, and that's an area where we'll have to get ahead. But there's other names around there as well. Angus O'Brien has heard us before. Ashton Hewitt on the wing is good. That Jordan Williams on the bench, number 23, can come on and score out of nothing. So they do have ways to hurt you if you let them. So it definitely won't be straightforward for Leinster on the night.
We definitely have to come out, particularly when subs come on. We're often guilty of this, where subs come on and we lose shape a little bit, and the defense isn't quite as accurate as it would have been up to that point, as people are trying to remember, where am I meant to be and where am I meant to slot in and how am I meant to figure in this lineup. And as I say, he could come on and create some real problems, a la Penno at the weekend, running around fellas who are just out of position or not sufficiently prepared. So we've got to be really, really careful, particularly as the changes starting to happen.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll move on to the officials now, and it's Mike Adamson of Scotland who's got the whistle, and as you can see, the rest of the crew there. The weather forecast for Dublin is supposed to be mostly cloudy and breezy. The wind does look like there'll be a bit of a wind blowing west in the RDS, with about 10-11% chance of rain, which of course brings us to our prediction, where we put our heads on the block and try to see how all the Irish provinces are going to do. How do you see Munster v Ospreys going, Conor?
I can't see past a Munster win. They've a lot of guys on the pitch who, you would be expecting to start if this wasn't a Six Nations block. So I think with that core there, even with a little bit of mixing having to happen, there's enough of the core there to drive them on, and I see Munster winning by probably 12 or 15.
Okay, and also on Friday evening, you've got Ulster, of course, our opponents in Europe coming up soon. Ulster are over in Scottstown to play the Glasgow Warriors.
Yeah, and again, Ulster they've a core group of players who would be regular starters, who are continuing for them again this week. And a lot of good names in there. I expect Ulster to win. It'll be a tighter game. I'd say Ulster by 6 or 8. Against Glasgow.
Yeah, I pointed out on Twitter that it was a really strong 23, and someone clapped back and said, of course it is, but we've so few players in the Irish squad. I was kind of left myself kind of wide open for that. But I favour them myself tonight. And then on Saturday, Connacht are over in Italy to play Zebra.
Yeah, Zebra have had a poor run this season. They've had a lot of games where they get close and they just can't seem to find that clinical finishing edge that they need. And yeah, they get a couple of tries in, but it's not enough, and I don't think it'll be enough against Connacht. I think I'm expecting Connacht to come back with a bonus point there. They'll leak a couple of tries, but to win by, again, 12 or 15.
Yeah, they're still on the fringes of the playoff picture there, so they could definitely need maximum points there, and which of course leaves us with Saturday evening at the RGS. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I don't think I can see past the Leinster win, and it's not just blue goggles. I think it's quality of team versus quality of opposition. Leinster by 21.
That's the kind of target you have to set. I mean, it's not arrogance. I don't think anyone who's watched the league this year, watching Leinster in particular this season, would complain about us saying Leinster should be expecting to win by that kind of margin. I expect maybe the bookies might even push it further with the betting that'll go between now and kickoff time. But and you like to push them with that kind of expectation as well. It's a good way of if they just scrape through, it'll be disappointment afterwards. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, there's enough quality there. And as a friend of mine pointed out, we were chatting after one of the pods, and he'd been listening to it, and he said, the one thing that Leinster are doing really well is that they mightn't always be as big, and they mightn't always be as physical, but they're very efficient at exploiting space and creating space. And that team we've named is designed to create space, to give room to the likes of Larmour and O'Brien and Osborne, and see what they can create out of that.
Absolutely. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there, Conor. Thanks a million for joining me on the preview show. Hope to chat to you again soon.
Thanks a million.
And be sure to join the conversation on Mastodon throughout the match, and then maybe head over to our Facebook page at full time and leave your thoughts there. So until our next wrap show, in the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.